Hello, everyone, and welcome to Political Paradigm. I'm Terry Ikumi. My guest today is the spokesman of the People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Organization, Mr. Daniel Bwala.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to first of all start by asking the obvious.
Right. No worries.
Which is, why should Nigerians believe you? The excuse that people like you would give is you know better.
Right.
But beyond that, why should Nigerians believe anything you say about the candidacy of Atiku Abubakar?
This is the first time I changed a political party. And the fact of my decision, I don't think was hidden. And it is quite open to everyone. It was a decision made by APC presidential flag bearer that I considered ran against my conviction. Because after all is said and done, we are representatives of our conviction first, before we are representative of individual. You cannot sell a product you don't believe in. You cannot sell a message you don't believe in. And I said it, that why my case is peculiar, and I made that decision was because I participated before the primaries in supporting the candidacy of the flag bearer. It was successful. So he promised to make me a spokesman, presidential spokesman, when he gets the ticket. Now he has gotten the ticket, and every communication was tilting along that line. I've had a course to have a conversation. As a matter of fact, the day I had the conversation with Comrade Adam Soshomole, you were there to interview him. I remember that day. That was the day I had with Adam Soshomole. It was a private conversation. My worries about the party's direction in taking a Muslim ticket. I've had that discussion with Femi Bajabiamila. And all I could glean from the different meetings I've had with them is that it is about winning election. And that you have to win election before you can implement policy. On the other hand, the conviction I had is captioned in the famous dictum of Eisenhower, who said that any political party that does not have in its core objective a belief system of doing what is right and what is moral, it is not a political party, but a conspiracy to seize power. So when you say it is about winning election, my opinion is it is a conspiracy. And you're going to make me a spokesman. So how could I go around the country selling a product or a message I don't believe in? That was the premise on which I resigned from the party.
So you're referring to the Muslim ticket?
Yes.
So how do you then react? Where does your conviction come
right.
In the full gamut of things when people say that we should have gone beyond ethnicity and religion?
Yeah. So that cliché is attractive or should be believed in a society where the level of knowledge of the people on an average is above that. You can never grow beyond your thinking capacity. And as a nation, we can never grow beyond our present knowledge of values, governance, and government. At this stage where we are in, I believe it is more of an optics to say that as a country we should grow beyond that, when what is obviously facing us is the very opposite. Nigeria is obviously divided along so many lines. One that is very major is religion.
Some would wonder, at what point will we go beyond religion? Is this not a stepping stone to jump in that hurdle?
No. The stepping stone is in a political party that reflects the principles of a united Nigeria. When they get into power, they begin to effect the changes from the incremental to the comprehensive change, from incremental to comprehensive. Because if at the stage where you were in, it's just like a baby that is stillborn and you're expecting the baby to start crawling.
The All Progressives Congress says
right.
it's focusing less on religion and wants a formula, a winning formula, and believes that what it has now, the Tinubu Shetima ticket, is a winning formula. You were a member of that party.
Right.
Do you see this as a winning formula?
In fact, I was so, it's the narrative, so it's an optics. They are playing identity politics. The reason they went for a Muslim ticket is because they have performed so poorly in the Northwest, where you have the highest voting bloc. And they know, politicians in Nigeria most especially, that anytime you want to whoop sentiment and have a support outside of the thinking of people is to whoop religion or cultural issues. So they went for a Muslim, like my friend Alhaji Magaji will say, to bribe the Muslim demographics into voting them. It is not a winning formula. Why? Because historically in Nigeria, people have always voted on the strength of the president and not the strength of the vice president. So you could have still taken a minority Christian, and if the candidate is a strong candidate, he will win the election. Remember that the Northeast voted for Jonathan over Buhari and over Atiku in 2011, and you will see that. So the evidence is there to suggest that the northern people are not as projected by politicians. And they often do that. That's why up till now as we speak, they have the confusion. Now, PDP as a political party is not talking about it. You will never hear discussion around religion on our part. So the identity politics is both nursed, midwifed, born, and now used by the APC. That's why they had a rally. They arranged what we call microwave bishops, right? People who appeared as bishops but with never a history traceable to their bishopric title, and they came. So if these bishops that they manufactured that day in order to buy into the heart of people who are already aggrieved by that decision, why is it that those bishops were not in the recently organized meeting by Bishop Kuka where the candidate of APC went, where you have a couple of bishops there? So they are whipping religious sentiment. You will never see gathering of PDP where you see bishop or any religious cleric, because religion is personal.
So does this now go to say that you would support the position of Senator Smart Adeyemi that there should be legislation to ban same-faith tickets?
Yeah, I will support that as a person. I saw it only yesterday in the evening, and I'm excited about that. I will support that.
Very well, then let's talk about Atiku's candidacy. We will be unable to go into the details of this 5-point agenda or manifesto because of campaigns, which are yet to commence. Right. However, in 2006, an investigation into Atiku's record as vice president led to him being accused of having diverted $125 million worth of public funds towards his business interests.
Right.
Now, he is also accused of favoring his cronies in the privatization process while he was vice president. Also recall that former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was his boss at the time, had accused him of corrupt involvement and said he had also embezzled some $20 million of PTDF fund. Now, Nigerians are concerned that despite the fact that there are no convictions, these allegations are weighty, and some have said that if we had strong institutions, stronger than the people in power, that he would have probably been behind bars. So, how do you react to these allegations with regard to the highest office that he is seeking?
So there are two issues now. The allegation, as as projected, but whether by Obasanjo or private citizens, and number two, the Obasanjo himself, because most of this allegation came from Obasanjo, and then people fed off it. Obasanjo and Atiku were in government, and they never had issues. Some of the things he accused Atiku of committing, based on his allegation, occurred at the time when he was in good terms with Atiku Abubakar. He never condemned Atiku Abubakar. It was after Atiku played the role of foiling his plans for a third term that he began to excavate this evidence.
So does this make it false?
Doesn't this go to the root of character? That is one question for the Nigerian people or any independent person to verify. But then secondly, in 2019, when he was supporting Atiku Abubakar, similar questions were put to him, and he exonerated Atiku because at this time he was supporting the candidacy of Atiku. In other words, his own assessment cannot be the yardstick for determining the indictment or otherwise of not just Atiku but any private citizen. Why? Because we are not running a monarchical democracy. We are running a democracy that is guided by the rule of law. The rule of law that I know that guides the conduct of indictment and allegation of corruption is regularity with one, somebody has to be indicted, and then number two, the person will be prosecuted. Your question is, does it mean without prosecution that somebody cannot be said to have been indicted? This is conjecture. The world over, if the build-up to the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton was accused of corruption. FBI investigated her. There was never a finding of guilt against her. In the 2020 or thereabout election of the US, both Joe Biden and Donald Trump were investigated because there was an allegation of corruption and indictment. At every given point in politics, things like that can come up. But I think that the society, since it is built on the rule of law, these things ought to be determined by the institutions that you talk about. Atiku has since left office from 2007. Ordinarily, the successive government that came after him, it was not a hidden thing that they were up against him because he contested against them. They had the opportunity of, even if they had the opportunity of indicting him, so even if they can't prosecute him, but there should be a criminal indictment. Criminal indictment is reflected in investigation and a finding. Up till now, as you and I are speaking, EFCC has never invited Atiku Abubakar on any of this wrongdoing. And recall, the privatization claim against him, Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna was heading the bureau at the time, Bureau of Public Enterprise. Maybe you may need to interview El-Rufai in the absence of an established indictment against him. Everything, Obasanjo sent Rivado, who was then the EFCC chairman, all over the world to fetch evidence. He traveled around the world and came back. It was conjecture. Because if there was evidence, it would have been put into the laws of the land to try him. Meanwhile, other presidential candidates, for example, the candidate of APC, has been investigated by EFCC, has been investigated by ICPC. So as you and I are speaking today, there is no indictment against Atiku. And the weightiest allegation against Atiku came from one source. And that source raised that as an issue only after he had a fallout with Atiku. So when the Nigerian people are given this full information, they will be able to judge between sentiment and law. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned as a private citizen, until and unless there is an indictment and conviction by a court of law, anything about allegation against him, in my view, is an opinion of that individual. And nobody stops anybody in Nigeria from taking any strong allegation you have against him, at least to get the anti-graft body to investigate. So you can say it has been investigated, there is a finding, but there is no prosecution.
So does this analogy apply to the APC presidential candidate who also has some allegations against him but no conviction? It does apply?
There were allegations. I remember there was this fellow in Lagos who wrote a petition to EFCC and said that Alpha Beta is linked to him and it should be investigated, and they investigated at the time. Understandably, the government is that of All Progressives Congress, right? So if they are unable to bring a finding against him, there are people who will look at it and say they don't want to expose one of their own. But in the case of Atiku, why I said you don't apply apples and oranges and they are not the same, is that Atiku was not a member of that government. So they have the ample opportunity of bringing that allegation against him.
All right, let's move on now. There are concerns as to, especially from the People's Democratic Party, members of the PDP, who are concerned that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar spent so much time outside this country. And, you know, this is the narrative that the average Nigerian is running with now and questioning how in touch he is with the realities on ground if he spends so much time outside this country.
Very good question. And the answer is just the reason they said that is because they have no idea what took him abroad in the first place. He had just finished his master's degree from Anglia Ruskin University from Oxford.
In 2019, just after he lost the election, he was out of the country for at least 8 months in Dubai.
Right. So I have been in England and I stayed in the last 3 weeks before I came 2 weeks ago. And it's very easy for somebody in Nigeria to say, why is he out of the country for 3 weeks? Because they don't know why. But I went for my daughter's medicals. People will always have a reason to travel out of the country. But on all the occasions they claim he traveled, he was always in touch with Nigeria. Otherwise, how could he just come in and win the primaries if he's not in touch with the base?
So that's the concern of Nigerians, especially because from 2019 up till 2021, when elections, the euphoria around elections began to pick up, Nigerians were concerned that in terms of opposition voice, with regard to him specifically, there was little or nothing with regard to how government was run. Until the elections began to approach.
I can tell you that, and that's false. I can tell you that because even as a member of APC then, I was constantly looking at his Twitter pages, Twitter handles, and you can fact check that. he is the one politician who has been consistent with the use of Twitter handles to express his opinion at every given time regarding governance or otherwise. No any other politician in Nigeria who has attained the level he has attained it, who has been consistent on Twitter. And what you and I are discussing is very easy to fact check.
So that's just, I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
But if you restrict contribution or opposition voice to social media, what does that say of your candidate?
So what were you expecting him to do? To take an army of soldiers and go to Villa?
No, absolutely not. But
okay,
there are those who are on ground who would speak against certain issues, make public appearances, probably lead rallies or protests if they have to. Does that not count as contribution? Has anybody staged
a rally since then?
Well, we've seen. I mean, we've seen protests.
Has Peter Obi staged a rally? Well, has Kwankwaso staged a rally? Well, you see, and if the Twitter is not relevant, why did you and I talk about that briefly?
There's absolutely no way that I would say Twitter is not relevant.
So that is the choice. That is his choice of, or that's the choice of a medium of communicating. But apart from Twitter, on a number of occasions he was in Nigeria where he attended, let's say, occasions like whether it is marriage, burial, or birthday, or visiting victims of is it a natural disaster or religious extremism, violence, whatever it is. He has always expressed his opinion. People's problem, as you were saying, hinged on the fact that he was out of the country. He has been able to demonstrate by what he has acquired in terms of the education or anything otherwise, that he was all along being productive. As a matter of fact, I will make the case. He is one candidate who has taken advantage of his staying out of government to prepare himself, because he didn't need to go to school. He didn't need to go to acquire education, but he knows the world is changing. This is 21st century. You have to be consistent with the changing times before you can participate in the change process. On the other hand, can you look at the other presidential candidate and tell whether at any material time they went for that, even if it is by correspondence? Masters by correspondence.
So here's a master's. Does it take away the conversation or question of his primary school education, which was not presented before INEC, or the name controversy in his GCE form submitted to INEC, just because he has masters now?
No, there's no correlation. Anyway, if you're talking of the provision of the law, the requirement for contest, it is there in the law, right? If you have at least, you remember the decision of the Supreme Court in Buhari and Atiku, when the Supreme Court said, if you have been educated at least to the level of secondary school, I think, yeah, to the level of secondary school, you are eligible. That is basic eligibility that other political parties now are dappling with. He has gone beyond that. He has gone beyond that and updated himself, whether in Ahmadu Bello University or now in Anglo-Ruskin University. The whole idea behind his decision to go and update himself, from what I know, is that he believes that a nation that prioritizes education will convert the nation's economy from an economy that hinges on natural resources to a knowledge-based economy.
So does this apply to the APC presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu?
As far as I'm
with regards to that basic provision that you just mentioned?
Well, I know I have a decision here that Festus Keyamo, his presidential spokesman, filed in court in 2002, part 799, Nigeria Weekly Law Report, right, at pages 605, when he was challenging the certificates of the person he's marketing at the moment. So this is not being personal. It's a law report.
Well, Festus Keyamo, in his response, says that he wasn't challenging that. He was simply saying that the House of Assembly at the time in Lagos had no legal right to try a sitting governor. That was all.
This is the Supreme Court decision, right? In the case I have cited, and people can check that. I will just read a line. They said the appellant alleged, among others, that as a legal practitioner, he has been confronted by some of his clients who wanted to understand certain things they considered important relating to their contesting the governorship in Lagos State. He further, that's Festus Keyamo, he further alleged certificate forgery against the governor of Lagos State, Bola Tinubu, and that the letter was not qualified for the office of government. The certificate that he was challenging forgery is that everything Bola Tinubu presented, who granted him the opportunity to run and win the election as a governor, was forged, was faked, and this is not mere slip of tongue. He went to court, not representing a client. He was the appellant in this case. Festus Keyamo versus Lagos State House of Assembly.
Oh, great. To be nice to see how he responds to that, because he had outrightly denied that. Let's talk about your candidate a little more now. It would seem that there are concerns that this is the election that he could win. The PDP believes that the APC has done so badly that this is an election for the PDP to lose. So my question to you is, what could make the PDP lose this election?
Because in life generally, the same capacity you have to win, you can also lose if you do not maximize the opportunities that you have. So if PDP does not maximize the opportunity to win, that is to say, if PDP does not engage with the Nigerian people, the voters, because ultimately it is the voters that will vote. If they don't engage with the voters and sell the message of what he has for Nigeria, then they may not, we may not win the election. But as of today, I can tell you that our message to the voters is quite resonating, because our message focuses and centers on what is confronting us as a nation. Education has not been prioritized. The UNESCO recommended budgetary allocation for education by every country is between 15% to 20%. As at today, 2022, the government has only spent 9.8% of the budgetary allocation to education. You can understand why ASU is fighting vigorously, because if you have allocated at least 15%, from that 9 to 15, whatever that is, generated from there could have settled the issue of INEC, the ASU. So you have not prioritized education. When it comes to healthcare, there is also a recommendation for healthcare. The government has not paid attention. Even when we were confronted by the COVID, which exposed the healthcare system around the world, you would have thought that Nigeria would take it to heart and begin to build healthcare facilities that will take care of Nigerians. But COVID has come, and COVID has come to stay forever. Where can we boast of any facility in Nigeria that people go for medical healthcare? Our emphasis on healthcare is as good as zero. As a matter of fact, they've gone beyond that to a point where they extort the private citizens for traveling out of the country. All the countries of the world, they've opened up their economies. You do not need to do COVID tests, whether vaccinated or not, to go to England or come out of England. But in Nigeria today, if you are not vaccinated, when you're coming back, you will have to pay for day 2 and day 7, which comes to about 70-something thousand from private citizens of the country. They have not laid attention to that. With respect to the security, you can see this is not about optics, it's not about rhetoric. It has come in full cycle. This government has spent, the APC-led government has spent more than any other government in the last 6-7 years, about 7-point-something trillion. We bought everything conceivable, from Tokano, every ammunition conceivable. But we're still losing the battle as far as the security fight is concerned. Between Kaduna to Abuja, in the last 9 months or so, it is reported that about 1.2 billion naira the poor Nigerian citizens have had to give out to the bandits. The same bandits now are building a kingdom somewhere around Kaduna. Have we not talked about when they say they will even abduct the commander-in-chief? The spokesman for APC said that the statement by the bandit to abduct the president is mere comedy, and in fact, they are comedians. And my understanding of comedy and comedians are people like Bovi, Basket Mount. They are private citizens. They entertain Nigerians. They don't have AK-47. They don't attack prisons. They don't kill members of the Brigade of Guards. They don't kill private citizens. So if they are saying that bandits are comedians, then if you vote APC to government, they are going to introduce Night of 1,000 Laughs. That's the situation they have with security. You can stretch that to economy. That economy thing is something else, because I have just been told that Nigeria is fastly moving towards what we call super recession. Super recession is a total breakdown of the economic structure of a country. Any government that wins election, any individual that wins election now in the next 3 years is going to have to cough out 27.7 trillion naira to pay for debt.
Mr. Bwala, let me take you back to the question on why, what could possibly make the PDP lose this election. I know it dovetailed into some of the reasons why you think that the APC has automatically sold the ticket to the PDP. But I'm surprised that you didn't mention the party crisis. You didn't mention the frosty relationship with the River State Governor, Wike, neither did you mention the concerns of the southern governors who had insisted initially that power should shift to the south and now seem to be on the same page with the River State Governor that the chairman of the PDP should leave.
First of all, the party is not in crisis. The party has disagreement. Not the party, individuals in the party have disagreement. The party believes and recognizes the agitation and expression of individuals. So rather than moving a certain group to one person like the way APC does, they move everybody to Villa so the president can issue a decree and everybody will go under. PDP recognizes and promotes this, the noisy part of democracy, because democracy is noisy because of interest, articulation, aggregation, and pursuit of interest. So as it stands today, and then the fact that you said the southern people are agitating, the argument is faulted, because for today, apart from Wike and I think 3 other governors that often travel
Southern governors.
Pardon?
Southern governors.
Yeah, 3 southern governors. But how many southern states have we got? We have, I think, 6 in the south.
And you already have 4 who seem to be on the same page.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if,
so it's not a flawed argument.
If I was in class, no, that's not a crisis. What I'm saying, if I was in class and you put the total number of southern governors together and you subtract by the 4 that are going with him, I don't think you will say I have failed. that's number one. Number 2, the process that led up to the emergence of Atiku is not a secret. It was a democratic process. That wasn't the process that applied. I mean, the process that applied to the emergence of Asiwaju was not like that, in the strict sense of it. In the case of Atiku, when this journey started, and it's important that the masses get to hear that, Atiku was heard to have expressed the view that if the party was inclined to zoning, he was of the opinion it should either be zoned to the southeast or to the northeast, because these are the geopolitical zones that have been marginalized. The now established Autumn-led committee. Governor Autumn, who is a friend, he is not from the south, we're going to talk about southern, he is not a southerner, but he is an ally of Governor Wike. He chaired the committee that came up with the finding that it should be zoned, it should be open. You can see a fair process. Otherwise, Autumn being a northerner, ought to have said it is zoned to the south. This run again contrary to the assertion by some. You led as the chairman of a committee, you came up with a decision, the process was open, everybody vied into it. Somebody emerged, and you said it's a skewed process. To me, it is undemocratic. The allegation...
Who has said it's a skewed process?
Pardon?
Who has said that the emergence of Atiku is a skewed process?
Those Wike's followers who are agitating that they have switched to what they call the national agenda, that the power ought to have been zoned to the south, said that the process was skewed. In fact, that was why they said they have an issue with the national chairman when he told one of the presidential aspirants, "You are the champion of the convention."
You know, this is what the River State Governor is concerned about.
Right.
He is concerned about the conversations underneath. You have said that his followers, and at no point has he alluded or taken sides with them, neither has anyone high up there. So it almost goes back to the point I had made earlier, where I had questioned if there was no crisis within the party, because I'm hearing for the first time that someone has said that the process is skewed, that it was a skewed process.
As a matter of fact, Channels Television reported
that it was a skewed process.
That they said, that his followers said, the process was skewed not to favor the person they were supporting. Channels Television was among the news media that...
Well, you can't point out who said that.
Which now strengthens our case that there is no security, there is no crisis in the party. As long as nobody can claim ownership of an issue, then that means the media is running with conjecture. Otherwise, you and I are discussing here. You like to tie things to anybody. Now, what can you tie to suggest that there is a crisis in the party?
Nyesom Wike has said in his last statement,
right?
These were his words. Mm-hmm. If they want the party to lose election, we will help them lose the election. Does that sound like an okay statement?
So that statement was in response to what was reported as the statement issued by the national chairman, when he said that when they built the party, these children were...
It wasn't reported. It was what he said. It was a video to back
but it was reported. I wasn't there, so it was
I'm just telling you that there's a video. It wasn't a report. Before we run with the narrative of the media running a report that isn't true, there's a video of him saying that.
He produced the video by himself?
Well, it was a video. It was a video, I think, in BBC House or thereabout. So there is a video to buttress that.
So that means it's reported.
I'm just trying to say.
You should know better than
that. No, exactly what I'm trying to be factual here.
Yes, yes. No, the fact that I said it was reported, I am not by in any way suggesting that it should not be believed. Everything that is pushed out by the media, they are reporters, actually. They say they report what Nigerian people think about issues. So he reacted to what he said. Now, we have called two individuals. The name of the party is People's Democratic Party. This disagreement between him and the chairman, are you suggesting there is anybody or any political party in Nigeria where you don't find that agreement?
You think there's a disagreement between Wike and the chairman?
Yeah, he was reacting to what he claimed.
No, beyond the disagreement, there was a basis for the conversation or these disagreement, as you mentioned. There was a build-up to it. The Wike's camp has said.
Again, you are using the word
camp. I'm specific. The Wike's camp.
Recognize that is a camp.
Absolutely. So Wike's camp, and Wike himself has said this thing. Mm-hmm. And I can also tell you that the BOT chairman of your party has said it, that it doesn't appear to be fair to have a presidential candidate from the north, a national chairman from the north, and then a BOT chairman from the north. Even the BOT chairman has said he's willing to go. However, when you look at the demands of the Wike camp and the call for fairness and balance, even though there are those who question if it is contained in the constitution of the party, does it add up?
Again, you are now putting me in a difficult position to react to it because you did not want me to rely on what they said, since it cannot be attributed to a person.
Absolutely.
But I will go beyond that and even answer that. You see, there was an agreement before the primaries, that if the presidential candidate of the party wins the election and becomes the president.
Wins election?
Yes.
Not emerges?
Yes. When he wins the election, the national chairman will step down. Now, but let's even concede. Let's concede to the fact that when the presidential candidate emerges, how many months have we got to the election? This is a very critical moment. The procedure for removing the national chairman, as outlined by law, is not by fiat. People's Democratic Party is not APC, where they sit in one meeting in Villa and announce that somebody has been removed and he goes home. That's not the procedure. That's not law. That is the autocratic system of democracy. PDP believes there is a procedure. You can find that in the party's constitution. You can find that in the code, in the principles of natural justice. There must be a process. You must give him the allegation because the reason for which you want to take him out must be consistent with the law. All of these processes, do you think we have as a party the luxury of time to be distracted by that when we have an election that is just 7 months ahead of us? That's number one. Number two, what other functional or pivotal role would a national chairman require, such as organizing a convention or whatever, for which you're asking this man to step down? In other words, no political party in a strategic position like PDP, and like you said earlier, that people reported that PDP, this is their chance to lose, will allow itself to be distracted by this type of things when it can go to the election, and after you win the election, then the chairman will be asked to go. So that even if the chairman then says he's not going to go, you can then invoke the provisions of the party's constitution for his removal. In other words, if you don't know strategy, you become a victim of tragedy. As a matter of fact, it has been documented that the opposition, what I mean by opposition, I mean that the party other than PDP, is the one behind fueling this crisis so that PDP will be dragged into this unnecessary drama while we have election ahead of us. Let me ask you, and by extension, the people who are agitating, what has this issue got to do with the security problems we have in Nigeria? What has this issue got to do with the fact that as a country we should be thinking about bringing up policy for economic recovery? We are going to pay 27.7 trillion. While we do that, we must also, we're demanded to generate infrastructural development that will promote free society economy. Why should we, of what relevance is that one to the situation that is confronting us as a country?
Yeah, this is political paradigm. It's politics and
Right.
issues.
Right.
We're dealing with the politics of your party now.
Right.
So it's very relevant. It's not my business what happens within your party, to
So
be
what
honest.
I'm saying,
However, that there are concerns within your party that, of course, Rivers State is important to the elections, considering the numbers there. We're talking of almost 5 million registered voters. If the reconciliation moves fall through, and both parties do not come to an agreement, that the Wike camp and the Atiku camp, what does that say to the chances of presidential candidates of the PDP in the elections in 2023?
First of all, PDP can win this election with or without Wike or Atiku, because PDP is an institution built over the years.
I know you're a lawyer,
No,
Mr.
I'm
Bwala. I
responding.
want you to be specific.
I am.
My question is
okay.
directly
What is it?
linked to Rivers State.
Right.
We see how the other parties consider Rivers State to be important, and that's why you find them going to have engagements with this.
Just like
with the
every other
no,
states.
regardless. I follow politics,
Right.
so I can tell when there's a specific interest.
Right.
These politicians, APC, the Labour Party, even Kwankwaso has gone to meet Wike, and this happened just in the heat of this disagreements with the PDP. If Rivers State, or if the Rivers State governor ends up not supporting the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, following his statement where he said, if they want this party to lose the election in 2023, we will help them lose. What happens?
So I will answer the question by asking you, do you think if PDP wins this election, it is because one man made the party win? The Federal Republic of Nigeria consists of 36 states plus the federal capital. The threshold for winning election is having the majority of the vote cast and at least 25% in 24 states of the Federation. If you subtract 36, if you subtract 1 from 36, you have 35, isn't it? And secondly, successive government or successive election in the past, were there occasions where somebody won election in Nigeria as president without having to win Rivers? The answer is in the affirmative, isn't it? In other words, politics is dynamics. So to directly respond to that point, if I'm going to the market and I have monies, Rivers, Plateau, whatever it is, put together to go and buy, and I'm confronted with the reality that I'm about to have a loss of River, as a politician different from the media, I will devise a way of making up for the loss, isn't it? But that's an extreme case. This isn't going to happen. Why? Because he said over and over and over that he's committed to the progress of People's Democratic Party. So if you have a doubt, it is not to ask me, but to ask the man who said, I'm committed to the growth and success. Because in the same speech, he talked about the party that is in debt. Who was he referring to? He was referring to APC. And let me say further, the same set of people you say that, found their way to Rivers, they also found their ways to Ota. In politics, you go to whoever you think can support your cause, or if you are from the opposition, you go to where you think this is going to aid your cause, and then begin to diminish that. They have engaged him for how long? They have not been able to get or extract any commitment on his side. The same again, I would say, the media reported after the last stream we had, where he had a meeting with Asiwaju, that it was not successful. So if PDP is not in such a way, if PDP is not attractive enough for him to believe that there can be disagreement, but we will still find solution, by now he would have committed either to Labour or committed to All Progressives Congress. So that is basically the point. But whether a PDP loses Rivers, in the election you fail to win Rivers, are you suggesting that once a political party loses Rivers, that political party is likely going to lose the election? Because it doesn't fall within the threshold of highest majority vote and at least 25% in 24 states.
That's why I mentioned the other southern governors, and indeed Benue State.
Right.
Not to mention, of course, that there's a concern with the southeast as well.
Right.
One, Peter Obi is seen as one who would pull the most votes from the southeast. Atiku's chances in the south-south are being questioned because of some of these, some of the crises within the party. And then there's a northern concern as well. It's largely APC driven, and it would seem that it's a stronghold for Tinubu because of the governors in the state. So where does he hold strong?
Good. I've always loved this question, so I can give you the answer in one stretch. So now, look, let me tell you where Atiku will win, and I'll give you permutation. First off, I want to start by saying that APC will be happy if they can get one single state in the Northwest. That is the highest voting bloc in Nigeria. Why am I saying that? The Northwest gave these votes to APC. In return, they got overwhelming insecurity. That has found its way in the various defections in APC-led states in the Northwest. And not just this defection, you can see the dissatisfaction with the voters in the Northwest. It is so evident that it is also reported that a good number of governors of APC in the Northwest are not supporting Tinubu, which is the reason why there has been a committee set up by APC to assuage them. That is a vast opportunity, a farmland, like a gold mine. And Atiku is making an inroad. You can see his last visit to Kano. You can hear utterances made by the key stakeholders from the Northwest so far supporting him. That is one. Let's go to the Southeast. There is the Peter Obi factor, but I can tell you today, Peter Obi only has what we call media presence and strong media support. There is not a single major stakeholder from Southeastern Instruction as we speak today that is supportive of the Peter Obi cause. And they are not the set of people that shy away from demonstrating. That is also the vast opportunity for PDP. I can tell you, I can state this argument further, that the presence of PDP in the Southeast is so strong that I can tell you PDP will win, as far as the presidential election is concerned, the highest votes in the Southeast. Why? Because the vice presidential candidate of PDP is of Igbo extraction, even though from Delta State. And this is the closest that we have come to giving the realization, fulfilling the realization of the Igbo agitation. If you go to APC now, an Igbo man is considered a non-entity. Do you know how many of them contested the last presidential election and look at the kind of votes they got from the delegate? There is no place for PDP, there's no place for the Igbo in APC. But in PDP, the Igbo man is coming close to becoming the vice president with the prospect of becoming the president. And this is actually evidence in the checkered history of Atiku Abubakar when he took Peter Obi. The relevance that Peter Obi has today is owing to what? The exposure that Atiku Abubakar get to him. The Southeast is also PDP, is ours. Let us go to the Southwest, because I'm sure you would assume that the Southwest is given that it's at Asiwaju zone. Look at Lagos and look at the renaissance that is going. Peter Obi is likely going to affect the votes that Asiwaju will get from the Southwest, because if you look at the movement, the people they call themselves Sorosoke, the movement that is supporting him, you can see the demographics of the Yorubas there. So he is the one losing and we are not the ones losing. If you come to the Northeast, that one is a feast and celebration as well as the North Central. If you put these two and two together on a comparative analysis, the conclusion will be overwhelmingly in favor of PDP winning than in favor of APC winning in either of the geopolitical zones when you put everything together. And that is why not us, even the neutrals and the millennials and the experts have said, based on analytics, that PDP is on course to winning. So I come back to the issue of Wike. If Wike does not support us, assuming, which is not what I'm saying, but I'm saying the extreme case, then what that means is that instead of PDP winning, let's say, with 9 million or 11 million votes, gap above the rest, maybe that will reduce the number of the vote by the number of population you have in the Rivers State. But that is not even given because we have stakeholders in Rivers, and Wike has made it clear he's one of the brightest we have in PDP who has executed projects and is executing projects that is a praise much more than what they said Asiwaju made Lagos to be. And he has said he's not leaving People's Democratic Party. This is our case. This is our narrative. This is the permutation. And these are evidence-based assertion. It is not assertion that is based on conjecture or assumption. APC in 20 states now, they have parallel executives. They have been trying to settle them. Few days ago, they even called for a meeting of the former aspirants, presidential aspirants. The thing failed, and it was reported for the lack of interest. Come back to the issue of the governors in the Northwest. There is agitation in both Northeast, North Central, and Northwest that if they don't ask the vice presidential candidate to step down, the people are not going to support them.
Let me take you back to what you said about Peter Obi. And some have said that it's good what he's adding to the political space. It's making it more interesting because you see some organic following for him. And many have questioned what could possibly speak against Peter Obi in 2023 beyond those who say that he is part of the establishment. He's one of the old politicians, just as you have said as well. And it would also seem that with the level of conversation concerning Peter Obi in the public space, that either the PDP or both the PDP and the APC are worried as to what sort of upset could possibly happen. So what could speak against such a man in 2020?
Actually, Peter Obi isn't going anywhere, and I think he knows it. And I will give you this. Algorithm check and data analytics was carried out where it was reached at assessing his strength on the social media. And it is discovered that 57.5% of people who engage for him consist of bots and or individuals that do not live in Nigeria. So meaning that when the chips are down, 57% of the energy he generates from the social media won't be on ground to vote for him. That is case number one. Case number two, Peter Obi is being used by some stakeholders as a decoy to support Asiwaju. And this is evident, and I will let you go do the research, of a particular known statesman who is consistently campaigning for him, but he has only stretched those campaigns to the north and has not engaged in the southwest. Meaning that the voters in the southwest should not be touched, but the votes that will come from the north, which are more likely going to be for Atiku, should be plunged. So in other words, like in chess, where they say you use someone as a pawn, Peter Obi is being used as a pawn to support the candidacy and emergence of Asiwaju. The third one is very important. No political party in Nigeria wins without a structure. Why? Because Nigerian nation and our laws, up till date, has not recognized electronic voting. What we have is electronic transmission of results, meaning that these individuals, you see them fantasizing for you, if they do not have a voter's card, they will not vote. Even those who have a voter's card, because of 700, is there how many 100,000 polling unit, 170 something or so thousand polling unit we've got in Nigeria, this one is a finding by civil society. You need on an average 3 polling agents in each polling unit. If you multiply that by the number of polling units, Peter Obi needs close to 500,000 recognized soldiers that will die for him to be in the polling unit.
But there are those who have come forward to say that they're willing to volunteer to be his agent.
Yes. Willingness is one. Showing up on that day is the second.
So what makes you think they will not?
Yeah, I'm saying that based on experience. And I think they have seen that in Osun too. You remember they said they are going to have 1 million votes in Osun. They got 2,700.
Peter Obi wasn't on the ballot.
Pardon?
Peter Obi was not
but
on the ballot.
But he was there and he campaigned. Donald Trump in America, even on recent time, he got the daughter of, politician from Wyoming. She sat as the chair of the General 6 Committee. He influenced her not returning. If you are a phenomenon, you should be able to influence
Let me take you to that statement you made about the statesman pushing for Peter Obi as a decoy for Tinubu. Would that be the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, whom you said had asked you to support Peter Obi?
Well, my response will be this. I have and I hold General Olusegun Obasanjo with the highest regards and esteem. I also count it a pleasure and a privilege that I can get a call from him asking me to, support the house he's building, which of course is Obi and Dati. Now, I did not, in a disdain, turn down the offer. As a matter of fact, while on phone, I told him that when I come back to Nigeria, I will go to see him and give my response. And out of respect for him, I didn't go. because I felt going to look at an elder statesman, one-time president, and a leader and tell him no, it would be disrespectful. We all come from Africa. And because I wasn't going to support that, I felt that when I don't show up, you will take it that I'm not interested. But I have a question, and the question and curiosity that I have, I think is owing to what I read, on the social media. Somebody just raised that question, he said they beg for answer. He said, General Olusegun Obasanjo is supporting Peter Obi. And Peter Obi, being a Southerner, should first have raised the votes in the South. Why is it that General Olusegun Obasanjo, this person saying, not campaigning or drawing support for him, because it's not yet time for campaign, but why not engaging stakeholders in the Southwest, since you take it that he has the Southeast, and you believe you get the South-South, so you can have a massive vote pool or vote bank, then you begin to engage the North. Why is it that all of his trips were to the North and engaging with the Northern stakeholders? Because presumably the Northern votes will naturally be defaulted. The same way they make the case that Peter Obi has the vote of the South will naturally be defaulted. So why is he not engaging the South? Why is the Southwest left untouched? And the person said in that article, he said, Obasanjo historically, when you pay a visit to him, as you're leaving, he will grant interview with you to the press. And he will tell the press what brought you and what his position is regarding your visit. But that for the first time, Obasanjo did not grant interview, nor allow the joint issuance of statement of granting of interview by him and Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. So people were now confused as to whether he agreed, he doesn't agree. But then they now read, 2 days later, a statement attributed to what Femi Gbajabiamila said in one of the meetings of APC, where he said he was in the room and that he heard Obasanjo showing support for Asiwaju. Now, he is not an ordinary citizen. He's a speaker of the Federal House of Representatives. If he said that and you take that to believe, then that means all of this support around Peter Obi were just like a decoy. It's not because I know when Secondus became chairman and they traveled to Otta, they met him, wanted him to come back to PDP. He issued a statement when they came out and said, he's not coming back, he has retired from politics. So this is the reason why I believe that Peter Obi doesn't stand a chance. Above all, when the campaign starts and you have to travel to different states of the Federation, you are going to be faced up with organic supporters, not social media supporters. That is when you will assess whether your popularity in the cyberspace translates to popularity with the voters, because cyberspace won't vote for you, the voters will vote for you. And usually your popularity is assessed by the feedback you get from the voters. And that is why someone like me believes that at some point, Peter Obi will support People's Democratic Party when it becomes apparent to him that he doesn't stand a chance. Because himself and People's Democratic Party have a common belief that APC has failed Nigerians, which is the reason why we are all trying to seek for power so we can translate the problems.
All right, just before we go, I think it's only fair to give you an opportunity to say the last words, and in this regard, it would have to be directed at why anyone would, quickly, if you may, why anyone would pick PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar over the other candidates.
Because of superior experience. None of them has had the opportunity of being a vice president or the opportunity of governing as acting president, and he has. And he was able to know the demographics, the multicultural differences of Nigeria, the problem Nigeria was confronted. He had the opportunity of meeting the kind of bad economy when they came in 1999, and they transformed it. And by the time they were leaving, we had all of the debt cancelled, we had foreign reserve increase, we had jobs created, and then they move on. So he has that over them. Third, decision-making capacity. Atiku Abubakar believes in democracy. He will participate in a democratic process by showing interest to ensure that whoever he wants wins under a democratic means. The other candidates believe in monarchical democracy, a democracy where one man chooses somebody and asks everybody to follow through. And all through the 7 years of APC, this is what they have been doing, whether with the choice of their national chairman or even attempted choice of the national flag bearer. So what Nigeria needs, he has over them. Thirdly, and lastly, Atiku has a good sense of judgment and is nationally accepted. If he goes to the Southeast, he's accepted because of checkered history and acceptance. The same thing with the Southwest, South, and the North. The rest of the other candidates, one key problem against them is that they are considered as regional generals.
Mr. Daniel Bwala, I'd like to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And good luck with your job.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Well, that's Political Paradigm. I'd like to say thank you to you for finding time to tune in. Remember to catch this episode and more on YouTube. Simply search Political Paradigm or go to channelstv.com and find more. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.